Travelers today have an ever-increasing array of accommodations available to them. To give us their perspective on this evolving lodging landscape, please welcome President and CEO, Wyndham Exchange and Rentals, Gail Mandel. Co-founder and CEO of onefinestay, Greg Marsh. Chief Strategic Officer of Generator Hostels and partner and senior advisor, Patron Capital Advisors, Josh Wyatt. Welcome, everyone. All right, so the Unhotel is what we're going to talk about. Let's start off with just a little bit about each of the companies that you work for, and what comes to your mind when we say alternative accommodations?
Okay. So Wyndham Exchange and Rentals is part of Wyndham Worldwide. We represent about 30% of the earnings of Wyndham Worldwide, which is a publicly traded company. And we are, at Wyndham Exchange and Rentals, the largest provider of professionally managed unique vacation accommodations. And when I think of non-hotel, I think of the product we provide, which is anything from houseboats to castles to timeshare resorts to villas.
Okay. Greg?
So onefinestay, which has just celebrated its 5th anniversary in business, we launched in London in 2010. We think of Unhotel as really meaning the hotel experience, and that's both a service experience and a branded and assured experience, but in the setting of a private home. And that's the service we've been providing for the last 5 years. We do that now in 4 cities, London, New York, Paris, and LA. And really the guests who come stay with us are looking, as Brian mentioned in the previous discussion, for exactly that, for assurance, for comfort, for convenience, for simplicity. But they're looking for that experience in that characterful and authentic setting of a private home, and with the amenity that only a private home can afford.
Great, wonderful. Josh, Generator Hostels?
So I work for Generator Hostels. We're the largest design-led hostel business in the world with 14 assets in 10 countries and about 8,600 beds. I think we're really the Unhotel because in a way we're not a hotel, we're a hostel. So we've tried to really revolutionize the hostel industry by bringing elements of design, art, curation, culture down into an incredibly affordable and shared experience. We also look at trying to program rooms with different experiences. So we'll partner with brands, with artists. We've done musician and artist takeovers of our properties. So it's trying to really bring the essence of the shared hostel traveling to a more sophisticated and innovative level, mixing and merging all these different ideas under one roof.
Great, so anything but the traditional hotel room, from vacation rentals to the hostel experience to the hotel experience at home, perhaps, in private homes. More recently, this whole conversation around alternative accommodations has really taken on a life of its own. What do you think is behind this rise? Let's start with you, Gail.
Well, it's really interesting because the sharing economy and this alternative accommodations might be new for some people, but we have brands in our portfolio that are 40, 50, 60, and even 70 years old. So this isn't new for us. I think the awareness is because of when we think about, Brian was just up here with HomeAway and Airbnb, they've brought awareness, especially outside of Europe. Europe, I think there's been a great awareness, but outside of Europe, I think it's really increased with these additional options, these online marketplaces.
So that's good for you, right?
Awareness is a good thing for all of us.
I think Gail's right. I mean, people have been staying in people's homes since the beginning of time. And this, I think, represents there is certainly innovation around distribution. I agree that's provided a focus through which this industry looks at that. And clearly, we see channels like HomeAway and Booking and so on as one distribution channel for our products. We're a manufacturer of the service experiences we offer, so we're happy to work with any of these folks as long as the shop window is the right one for our product. I do, however, think there is underlying that distribution innovation a couple of other macro trends. The first is a dramatic change in the way that technology affects people's experiences and needs for that travel journey. For instance, we lend guests who stay with us an iPhone during their stay, which is a small token, but it makes a huge difference to the way that someone has support through their service journey with a brand like ours. And the other macro trend is a demand for more authentic or characterful experiences, and experiences which you don't only consume at the time you stay, but experiences that you also consume in your memory, on the social services and the networks that you're part of. And I think those things do point to and underscore, for instance, the growth in the boutique hotel sector in the traditional lodging industry, where people crave those more authentic experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have really tried to focus on that concept of authentic experience and whatever that may mean in each different city. But the advent of and the increasing velocity of use of technology, I mean, especially amongst our guests, is something completely incredible. I mean, even today, if you strip away all the cliches, the reality is that our core demographic, which is age 18 to 30, they're averaging about 25 euros to stay in our place in a bed, but they all have Android or iPhones, and they're on their phones all the time, looking at everything, understanding and using social media and multiple different channels to share information. So we're trying to really figure out how are people actually sharing images and sharing experiences with each other, and how do we actually react to that? Not only as a brand, but really as innovators. It's a constantly changing game, and trying to figure out what our, and I hate using the word millennial because it's such a buzzword these days, but what is that sort of fast-moving, technologically connected customer? What do they really want, and how do we actually provide the canvas to achieve something that is attractive to them, that they'll come back or talk about or share media on their various channels?
I think there's just one other point to that. For the last couple of days, we've all sat here and we've heard a lot of discussion about personalization. Yeah. And when we think about what vacation rentals and what our alternative accommodations offer, it really does offer the right product for the right person at the right time. So you have that opportunity to really find the right fit for you.
One of the things, though, and our research shows this consistently, is that people go to a traditional hotel because of the conveniences, because of the amenities. Greg, you mentioned that you provide those, but not every convenience, not every amenity is possible, right, when you're in a home. So what are you doing? I know you have a partnership with Hyatt. What are you doing on that front, and how far does it extend? Is it something that you see yourself kind of moving across all of your properties, your portfolio?
So we announced a financing round, a $40 million capital raise earlier this year, and that's really to support our continued expansion into new markets. We're planning to launch in a couple of new locations in Europe in the new year, and more to follow. I think what I'd say is that that consistency that you're describing is a bug, but it's also a feature, and it depends on the purpose of your trip. If you think about the types of folks who stay with us, it's families, it's extended stay business travel, it's couples who want to go deep in the markets that they experience and really feel like they're a local while they're in town. And those types of service experiences are ones that traditional hotels find it much harder to offer. There are other types of travel need. If you're coming to town for a business conference like this, you're in town for a couple of nights, in a way the convenience needs dominate. You don't really want to go through the process of learning and discovering an entirely new apartment or getting to know the owner. That's a step that's just too far for that kind of product. And so I think it's about a complementarity between what traditional upscale hotels offer in city centers and what services like ours can offer in city centers. So a natural partnership opportunity for us in the types of conversations we're having with hotel operators is, for instance, you earn points when you're traveling for business, and maybe you redeem those points when you're traveling for leisure through services like One Fine Stay.
Okay, great. And what about you, Gail? You're part of the Wyndham hotel group. How do you distinguish yourself, and what are you doing in terms of bringing sort of those conveniences to vacation rentals?
So I think Greg is right. If you're coming to a conference like this, it's a transient stay and you're going to stay at a hotel. If you have your family and you have small children, or you have an extended family, you want that kitchen, you're looking for a different type of product offering. From our standpoint, we're in the professional management business, so we're there to make it a no-hassle experience. We're not providing all of the hotel amenities, like a room service, but we provide many amenities to help make the stay for the customer as well as for the homeowner easy for when they're dealing with us.
Okay, great. And I'm going to ask you the similar question. You're bringing that fresh perspective to hostels, right? What's the thinking there? How do you evolve that? Or are you kind of, just kind of saying, yes, we have hit on a winning formula and we're sticking to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at how certain brands, whether it's hotel brands or retail brands, think about diffusion technique with their strategy, where they're diffusing, they're taking a luxury concept and diffusing down and creating a budget experience. We view ourselves as an infusion brand, so to the point about amenities, we actually try to infuse the property with as many different talking points and sort of options for our travelers. Our travelers, we think, I don't know, we could be completely wrong and off on some wild journey here, but we think that people really want to be the author of their own experience. So we don't actually really know what amenities they like. We just provide a whole bunch of different opportunities within the property, along with a technology backbone to try to communicate what options are in a local market, as well as the employees. So it's really important to train your employees to understand what's really happening. So, I think people's attention span today and travelers' attention spans today are much more ADHD-like, in the sense that they're changing their mind, they're changing what they need, and trips today are, I think, no longer just, okay, I'm coming in, I'm purely leisure, I'm purely business. People today come in and sometimes extend a trip to 1 or 2 days of leisure, 1 or 2 days of business. They're doing business meetings now in the hotels, so actually going back old school again, where you have everyone come into the hotel lobby and hang out and conduct business as opposed to in quiet meeting rooms. So this ability to infuse the experience, even with technology, infuse your technology so that it's a much more interactive and diverse play, I think is something that strategically all of us in this room can really benefit from.
If I may, it's fascinating, Josh, hearing you talk about this, because you could be talking about our business as much as the hostel business, which is ironic because the price points couldn't be more different. Our average stay is, sort of many thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
But I think the needs are very similar for those two different communities. We did a lot of work to sort of rebuild our brand identity over the last 12 months, and one of the big insights was very similar. People want to be authors of their experience. Our job is not to dictate that and to force it down their throats. Our job is to prepare the ingredients so they can make their own meal. And I think that's true whether you're staying in someone's home or whether you're presenting the home that you've created to the world. It's interesting, different price points, same insight.
One question though, does that vary by market, Gail? Do you find that, you have properties internationally as well? One of our panelists on the Art of the Race panel yesterday mentioned from India, and he said that it's often the predictability of what you're going to get that drives travelers to hotels. And so what's your perspective on that?
So when someone comes with us, because we are a professional manager, we're taking responsibility for the photographs, for the content, so they know what they're going to get when they're coming to us. And then if they do have an issue, once again, we're there we have boots on the ground, and we have a local market presence, and we're there to answer the phone. And if the air conditioning breaks in the middle of the night, we're going to make sure that we have our representatives there quickly. So I think we provide the good balance between that experience of knowing what you're going to get and having that larger vacation rental option.
And Greg, how do you deal with the air conditioner breaking down?
The air conditioning breaks, well, this happens, right?
It does.
And you got to fix it. I was smiling as Gail was talking because I realized that you've got three representatives from three very different kind of takes on a non-hotel business, but all of us have businesses with feet on the ground, right? So when you start to use the word hotel, what you're getting at is that consistency, that quality, that assurance. And you can do that in lots of ways. We do that with people because there's a role that people play in the hospitality business. We employ more than 750 people in the 4 markets where we operate. That's a lot of folks, but that's because when you're coming to stay and you're paying real money for that experience, you need to know the quality's right. We inspect the properties. We select fewer than 1 in 10 of the homes that we evaluate for inclusion on our site because we need to know that that quality is consistent, and we inspect them in person in every instance. So I think it's, again, across the different price points here, the same underlying insights apply, which is that Things change, but things stay the same. And what people want, assurance, simplicity, convenience, and increasingly a unique and authentic experience. Those things are consistent across brands.
Okay. And you mentioned brands earlier as well. How important is it for you to build your own brand when you also distribute through intermediaries, the OTAs, kind of, where are you focused? Where's your kind of attention?
Yeah, so I think about this very simply. I think that there are manufacturing businesses and there are distribution businesses, and sometimes you do a bit of both. I would love to be in a world where everyone who wanted to stay with One Fine Stay knew about us and came to our website and clicked to book. That'd be great. The reality is that while we have raised money, we certainly don't have the billions of dollars that it costs to build consumer mindshare in 20, 30, 40 countries globally. And so we're very happy to pay the tax and to get that distribution and profile through third parties. Why? 2 reasons. We know from our CSAT scores, from the Net Promoter scores, that when people stay with us, they love it, they come back, they tell their friends, and they become profound advocates. Our Net Promoter scores are, as far as I'm aware, industry leading for a hospitality group. They're exceptionally high in all the markets where we operate. And the second reason is that our inventory is exclusive. So you can't have a One Fine Stay experience any other place than through One Fine Stay. You can buy our product in other people's shops, but it's still our product. And because we're confident about the intrinsic and structural differentiation of the offer that we have, we're pretty relaxed about making sure that's available in as many shop windows as possible. We know folks will love it and they'll come back.
So what you're saying is even though you distribute through booking.com, it's still a One Fine Stay branded kind of offer?
It's always One Fine Stay branded. You're always met by one of our team members. You're always staying in a property that we're the exclusive manager for that property. And I don't mean to throw mud because there's no one on stage here from the traditional lodging industry to defend themselves. But when I checked into this hotel yesterday morning, it was only after I checked in that I realized that its ownership had changed, or the management contract had changed over the course of the last 12 months. The property is the same. Right. The brand has changed, and yet the property is unchanged. So there's something about the traditional hotel industry that I think has a bigger challenge with commoditization than a business like ours, where the product is much more intrinsically differentiated.
Okay. One of the things, though, and maybe Josh, but when we're talking about the OTAs and they come in with their marketing muscle, what are the implications for your brand, for the smaller brands?
Yeah, I think, look, it's a real issue, and I think Greg actually nailed it. It's a tax that you're paying to effectively distribute your product. Fortunately, we live in a space where we've created a space where we think we're making hit music records. So, there is a band out there that people want to listen to, and they'll continue to listen to that band. That's what we're trying to do. I mean, we're trying to create memories and experiences in our spaces that really can't be replicated, and therefore we think will drive a better RevPAR. We don't really use the word RevPAR, but just to keep it simple, drive a better RevPAR down into our space. I mean, the challenge with the hotel world, or in this case hostels, is that there is always going to be some element of commoditization. So if you can continue to differentiate yourself through culture and design, and by using firepower, I mean, we're very well capitalized, having been owned by a private equity firm. So we've been able to put up these barriers with really a sense of design and real estate and location, and mixing in all the soft elements. So going back to the OTA distribution point, we're going to always have to distribute over that, but we think that people are going to really continually, even if we have to lose 5, 10, 15% to one of the OTAs, we'll take that. We think that we're going to fill more because we have such good scores going across all of our review sites. And it's just a fun place to stay. People really remember it. And so ultimately, that will be a long-lasting differentiator versus a commoditized product. And I think, by the way, it's not just hostels. The whole hotel world is going this way. If you look at all the boutique brands, I think, and I will make a statement here, I think it's probably not going to be well received by some of the big guys, but why did Marriott and Starwood just merge? I mean, it's now a merging game because effectively the newer brands that are coming, these boutique experiences, that's what people want, whether it's through certain non-hotel experiences or through hotels that are just providing incredible design, incredible experiences, incredible food. It's far more interesting to stay there than some of these big box that are just nameless and faceless.
We saw a couple of companies on stage at TIS on one of our panels, and now we're talking about metasearch purely for vacation rentals or alternative accommodations. Do we need those companies? Do we need metasearch in vacation rentals? You're focused just on alternative?
I don't know. I look at it and I say, the online marketplaces, as we talked about, have increased awareness. And then I also think about our partnership with them. And for us, it's also helped us to reach areas where we wouldn't have reached before. For example, last year, our Novasol brand, which is a Danish-based company which predominantly has German consumers, last year when they started working with Booking.com, ended up with 74 bookings from Australia. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't have been marketing to the Australian marketplace. So when you're bringing in new people and new business from a distribution standpoint, that's fine.
So it doesn't matter as long as the business is coming in from somewhere?
I think that it doesn't matter if it's incremental business to us. We have strong brands, as I said, that have decades of equity. And so when we are able to bring new people and raise the awareness of our brands, that's a good thing.
And you're hoping and that next time they're going to have such a good time, they're going to come back to you direct next time? Is that?
Well, it goes back to Greg's point that he made about his business, and yes, his business is a different price point, and he's providing different services, but we've got exclusive contracts, so it's our customers, our homeowners that are providing we're providing the experience not only to the customers but also to the homeowners. So when they come back, they're coming back to us.
Sorry.
So no, I was going to say, I think my observation here is that traditional lodging product, flights products, etc., there's complexity in these products, but how to sell them is relatively well understood. They've been marketed in a fairly consistent way, and in a sense, digital channels that market them have had many, many years to evolve, to adapt, to meet the needs of that distribution. I think the Unhotel product categories involve more complexity, there's more heterogeneity in those product categories, and so there's more innovation required around the decision and selection funnel. So I think eventually metasearch will happen. Personally, I think it will take a little longer than it's taken in traditional lodging space, where the dimensions upon which someone's making the selection are better understood and easier to communicate.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about like heterogeneous content, because with hotels, they have a portfolio of different brands, but in general, people know what to expect, right? There's the star ratings, there's the categories, whether it's economy or all the way up to upscale. In the alternative accommodation market, it's a little harder to differentiate between properties other than price, or you spend a lot of time kind of looking through different properties. So do you think we'll see something similar, something that kind of has that categorization and makes it easier for consumers?
I think it'll take time. One of the things I did a few years ago when we were building One Fine Stay in the early days is I went and researched what determines how many stars a hotel has. And the fascinating thing is, Booking.com may say one thing, but different tourist organizations in different countries have completely arbitrary criteria often for determining whether it's 5 stars or 4 stars or 3 stars. If you have a wine list, then you're 4 stars. If you have a great wine list, you're 5 stars. I mean, these aren't the dimensions of choice which many consumers would regard as being critical. So I think gradually value signaling and those kind of distribution lens selection methods become more evolved and mature. In the meantime, brands have a role. I mean, One Fine Stay is a brand, right? It's a service brand and a curatorial brand. And what we're communicating to people who are interested is there is a consistency, there's a promise of quality, and we're standing behind that. And I think that always has a role in consumers' minds.
Okay. We can't let you go without talking about Airbnb. So for you, with the younger millennial consumers or the travelers that you're targeting, what kind of threat does Airbnb pose for you?
So I've said this publicly many times before, and I'll say it again. I mean, for me, I see Airbnb as a friend, actually, because it's bringing more people into the city, and for us, we benefit from that because it's just more volume coming in. And our price point, because our average bed in our portfolio is about 30 euros per night, we think that it's probably impossible for Airbnb to ever really compete with that price, when we also have, in addition to that, a cranking nightclub and bar and restaurant and cafe every night right on property. If I'm a 4-star big box branded hotel, I'm petrified of Airbnb. I think the biggest threat to some of these huge publicly traded companies is coming from places like Airbnb, and they're going to have to figure out how to make their product better and more memorable and easier to use and more efficient. So right now we're thrilled to see Airbnb. In fact, Chip Conley's actually stayed in my hostel in one of my cities, and we've had some good talks about it. I mean, I think Airbnb for me is great. If I'm sitting as a big box brand, I'm probably a little nervous right now.
Great. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Gail Mandel, Greg Marsh, Josh Wyatt.